So with some auspicious invocation, and I'd like to invite one of you to share a few spontaneous words of blessing today's gathering. Narottam Prabhu, why not? You have the 108, they're imprinted in your heart. You're calling our attention in that direction.
Jai. Well, I'd like to first start off by saying the Panchachata mantra. Shri Gauranga Nityananda, Shri Advaita Chandra, Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Shri Radha Govinda. And I just hope we all are inspired by Maharaj's talk. And I wish all of you blessings. And I'm just so happy to be with all these exalted Vaishnavas. I am such a fallen soul. I just appreciate the association. So, Radhe Radhe.
Thank you so much. And welcome, each one of you. Hopefully in a radically personal way, welcoming each one of you to today's gathering, satsang here from Ananda Ashram in this side of the world, and trying to reach out to each one of you from wherever you are and gain more and more awareness of our interconnection, right? Interrelation, and how we exist in a bond of mutuality. As Martin Luther King will say, we all live in an inescapable network of mutuality. You cannot say it better than that. It's an inescapable network of mutuality. So we are here to acknowledge that, to celebrate that, and to ask us the important questions. So what to do about it? How can we serve? How can we tend to the necessities of love? And if we are already saved, what I'm saved for, not so much what I'm saved from. So concerned with what Srila Siddhar Maharaj will describe as positive and progressive immortality. Eternity is already here, and it's positive. It's not just getting free from something negative. It has lots of positive content. And it's progressive. It's ever evolving. So this one of many endless chapters of this ever-evolving narrative. So blessed and honored to be traveling with all of you today. And as usual, we invite each of you, those of you who would like to bring something to the table today, whether it is a question, an inquiry, some doubts on topic, you feel the need to drill deeper and deeper into that, you are invited to raise your digital hand, or for whatever other reason, you can send a written message, and eventually we'll try to honor them accordingly. I'm seeing a few raised hands already, so we'll begin there with Bhakta Prem from Peru, Lima, from Argentina, but living in Peru.
Thank you, Maharaj. Pranams to all of you. I have something in my mind since the last week. I was invited to a Avirbhav Mahotsav of Sri Narayan Maharaj in Lima in a program, and everything was really nice. And the class was finished, and the devotee said, if you have some questions. And one guest asked, what happened with where the guru falls? And everybody in the same time, he was no guru. So inside of me, make me like, I mean, between, like you say, always between black and white, it is too many grays. So I say nothing, just hear everybody like, no, he's no guru, blah, blah, blah. And okay, so I want to, what do you think about, or what the scripture says about? Thank you. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. And of course, yeah, there are different, as you say, between, as I like to say, between black and white, there are endless shades of gray. We could even say there are endless shades of black and white, right? There's not only one black, one white, and many grays in between. There are many whites, many blacks, and many grays. So reality is nuanced. Personally, I feel more comfortable with living life, spiritual life, living my ideas of things from a place of nuance. Of course, with this, I don't want to also fall into, in the name of nuance, being complacent, or some things maybe need to establish in a very straight way, and there's a chance to do so as well. But again, the name of our philosophy is Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, right? Which basically portrays reality as one and different. So it's not entirely one, it's not entirely different. It's not entirely black, it's not entirely white. And it's Achintya, it's paradoxical. It's beyond the usual way we think things. So just the very official metaphysics of our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition invites us to embrace nuance, to embrace this in-between space between things. So, and this is applicable to all departments of reality, not only one thing, because sometimes people will say, okay, Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva means it's the simultaneous unity and difference between God and his different Shaktis. So it's not something to apply to the totality of reality, but to God and his Shaktis. But the point is that the totality of reality is composed of God and his Shaktis. So there's nothing apart from God and his various potencies, the potency of bhakti, of divine love, the potency of the jivas, us as souls, the potency of material energy, and that's it. I mean, that's it. Like, if that's not enough, there's so much inside of that. So this Achintya Bheda Ved, paradoxical simultaneous unity and difference, something that is pervading every department of existence. So going to your question, with this, I don't want to sound like I'm judging a particular group, because in every group we find different individuals. And even if a particular group, and I'm not saying this one you refer to, but even if any particular group may be characterized by a certain stance in their majority, even still there are individuals who may think different, or different about that majority opinion. So at the end of the day, we have to be radically personal, approach each individual. So you have approached me as an individual, so thank you for your radical personalism. And according to my understanding of scripture, and according to my experience of that understanding of scripture, my lived experience also as a disciple in connection to to different teachers, some of which, if we may want to use certain words, may have had some shortcomings that were not expected from someone having embraced a certain particular order and certain set of vows and so on and so forth. I will personally respectfully disagree with that opinion that if a guru at any point of their journey has some kind of problem, and then we may need to speak what we are talking about, what's a kind of problem, that was not guru at any moment, it was fallen from day one, that was a total hoax, and unless you get the absolute bona fide pure perfect person, you are in some sort of spiritual limbo, because sometimes that's the implications of that idea. And of course, generally, many times, not always, but sometimes, though, some people who will say that will say, and the most perfect guru happens to be my guru. So, and that's a complex situation, right? Because many times from the start, and again, I'm not speaking about any particular group, I'm just saying about things that I've seen in different groups, almost in every group, that one tends to absolutize their particular teacher to the point of blindness sometimes, not in a very healthy way. And when you are asking the person, okay, how do you know that person is all that you say he or she is? Basically, they may reply by saying, what do you mean that you don't think he is that? So it's more in a pattern of intimidation and social pressure and conformity to the majority opinion. And if not, you are a heretic, you are an offender, and you're out. Even if you dare to point a minor mistake in someone who may be a pure devotee. I speak about that in Radical Personalism, the chapter on Guru and Disciple. We can speak about someone who is, we can label that person officially as a pure devotee. Whether that person is a pure devotee, that's another thing, but we many times may label people in that way, refer to them as such. And if the person is such caliber of lover of God, that doesn't prevent that person from committing certain, in this case, minor mistakes. But for some people, that even that is not possible. No, I know if I will dare to say, I don't know, such and such personality, I won't give names because I don't want to trigger any of you now. But if I will give a particular name and say, oh, that person, if that person misquoted a verse during a class, again, minor mistake, that can happen, and that doesn't compromise the position of that person internally. But I know that I've witnessed that some people will say, no, that's not possible. There's no mistake possible in that person. If they seem to have misquoted a verse, they were just testing us. Or it was a lila, and that's when for me it gets dangerous. That we are really over absolutizing, and that speaks more about not so much your strong faith in that person, but probably your weak faith that can only surrender to someone that has to be absolute and perfect in every single way. Because at the least minor mistake, your whole faith project starts to collapse. So all that speaks more about our unwillingness to offer ourselves unconditionally to someone. And we need all this set of conditions. You have to be perfect, this, that. So yeah, in my experience, and my opinion based on my experience, and this question is concerning Guru Tattva, right? So Guru Tattva is a very complex reality. And sometimes one of the complexities of Guru Tattva is that we tend to limit Guru Tattva to a particular person. So and we fail to understand Guru Tattva as a principle flowing originally, let's say, from God himself and manifesting itself through different individuals in different degrees also. So we could say there are more partial and more absolute representations of Guru Tattva. For me, it's not like this is the only possible one and that's the bona fide and everything else it never existed to begin with. So I have personally, and as much as someone may want to convince me that I was delusional, that goes against an undeniable experience that I had, and many with previous gurus that, again, for different reasons, I've taken distance from them. But at the time, I experienced so much grace and clarity and shelter and inspiration coming through them from the fountainhead, the wellspring of Guru Tattva, Krishna himself. So who am I to deny that? And who are you to deny that in my experience, right? If you try to tell me, no, that was not true, how do you know it was not true? No? And why you are trying so hard to convince me about that? So yeah, it can happen. And even if at any point that particular agent representing the agency is no longer doing that properly, even abusing his or her capacity as an agent, okay, the flow may be stopped through that person at one point, but it doesn't mean that there was no flow ever to begin with. It's like a policeman, no? The example, a policeman is an agent representing the police agency. So you can start as a good policeman, and it's just an analogy, and you're representing the department in a very transparent way. It's an agent of justice and this and that. And at one point of your police career, you become corrupted. And you start to do wicked things. And you no longer represent the agency. And eventually you end up committing crimes and sent to jail. But that doesn't mean that you were never a good policeman and you never represented the department in a good way, right? So, and the scriptures very clearly say that in the midst of the journey, we may get distracted by many things that even distract our attention, and they come in the name of bhakti. In the name of bhakti, I get attached to this or to that. So I may begin from a certain place, very genuine. I may embody the divine current of transmission, but we can also get distracted, at least in certain level of realization. Maybe, of course, in higher and higher levels of realization, the possibility of a shortcoming is less probable. But again, there are many statements in scripture and from our teachers that that can happen before that, and there can be gurus who are not necessarily the most advanced of all. There's place for that as well. Yeah, there may be some risk, but love is a risk at the end of the day, right? If in the name of potential problem of some guru, I don't take any commitment, I don't dare to love, because who knows? If I dare to love this person, he or she may betray me, he or she may fail. Well, I may fail also. so what will we do? We will freeze absolutely and don't dare to risk anything in life. That's not the call, the clarion call of Krishna's flute, so to say. So again, I've heard about that type of opinion, which is a little bit more black and white, and only if a guru fell down, it was never a guru. To begin with, I don't like the expression falling down. You can say falling, but you don't know if they fell down or they fell upward, as Richard Rowe will say. Because you can fall and you can learn from your fall and become humbled and receive and be praying fervently and be in connection with a new level of grace. So I don't dare to call that falling. Or if you want to use the word falling upward. But many times we take for granted that if someone had a particular shortcoming, that was a falling down, and the whole term falling down has been historically charged with like you are put into a box for eternity, right? You are fallen for eternity. Well, we are all anadi bhada jivas, right? According to our philosophy, we are fallen without beginning. So we should be quite humbled by that fact. And be very careful about labeling people as fallen. I mean, if it's about fallingness, we are all falling. Not to over-identify with that. That's not all we are, but there's a part of it that we could embrace it from a humbling perspective. So I don't dare to label that on other people. Who knows what's going on in the heart of each given individual, right? So we should be careful about that also. As much as we should be careful also to pinpoint if there is abuse in the name of Guru Tattva, no? Because also I totally for that. If someone is engaging in pastoral abuse of spiritual authority, other forms of abuse, we need to speak about that. Not like, no, let's not be offensive. Let's not have our bhajan disturbed. No. We have to speak about that, not from a place of resentment and an eternal vindictment. That's the word. Anyhow, anyhow, vengeful spirit.
Vindictive.
Vindictiveness,
Yeah.
right? Thank you. I'm always training my English with all of you, sorry. But we should speak the truth. But knowing also that part of the truth is that souls have an eternal prospect and there's mercy and there is always a possibility of repentance and changing and transformation. So all that had to be brought into the mix. So anyhow, I don't want to overextend myself, but that will be a short answer about that. So I hope it helps. It's clear, Bhakta.
Yeah, very clear. Yes.
Okay.
Confirm why I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm seeing a few other raised hands. If I'm not mistaken, there's a anonymous written question sent that Bhaktirasa has, and probably that's her raised hand. I don't know, but I'm aware of that. And the question is related somehow to the topic. So if Hari Vyasadev will allow to jump over him, we are going back to you in a minute. So we continue there a little bit before inviting you to breakout rooms to talk more conceptually about this particular topic today.
Yes, the questions that came in, and actually I have my own question, which is also related to Guru Tattva, but
Okay.
I'll ask the written questions first. They ask, Swamiji, you've left your first guru due to the guru's fall down, and the second one due to a disagreement or rejection of you as a disciple. Where does that leave your connection to the sampradaya in Guru Parampara? Are you similar in status to one who is not initiated, or do either initiation hold as valid as far as your lineage connectivity? And then there's a second part of the question. Do you see both gurus in terms of purity, such as not seeing the guru materially, or do you see the disconnection and any impurity as related?
Okay, thank you. So thanks for the invitation, whomever shared the question for. Yeah, sharing a little bit of my journey. Of course, most of you know me and know my journey, and it has become quite public. So I don't think anything I will say it will be new. But I understand the need to ask those questions because, yeah, it's a good attempt to grasp how the dynamics of Guru Tata function in a weird case like mine, basically. So I'd like to clarify a few things also regarding the question, because part one of the question says that I've left my first guru due to the guru's fall down. Again, I already explained the fall down theory on expression. I cannot, I mean, I acknowledge there were some shortcomings, improper behavior, repeated improper behavior, eventually as it came to my notice. I don't know if using the expression I've left my guru, because again, what's guru to begin with, right? If we over-identify with one individual, I took a distance from that first teacher, but I also carry with me all the positive experiences I had, positive learnings, positive teachings, positive moment in which Guru Tattva expressed itself through that person to me. As tragic and terrible as that chapter ended. Again, for me, one thing doesn't cancel the other. So it's not that in me taking a distance from that individual because of certain unfortunate circumstances, I'm denying and canceling and undoing everything that I've experienced with that person in 2 decades, in my case, which was pretty long time. So, I mean, so I think there was a lot to be grateful for, and I'm taking that with me. So from that place, I don't feel comfortable saying I've left my guru or even I've rejected my guru, because it sounds again black and white. Yeah, I rejected certain behaviors and certain things, but there are some other things that came to me through that person that I'm not rejecting. So again, it's not fully all or nothing. Okay. So I want just to clarify that because there was this like presupposition, assumption in the question. And regarding my second guru, if we want to speak about Diksha gurus, because again, in our tradition, we have a plurality of gurus. So just to say first and second, like if it's something you only had 2 in your life, it's very limiting. I don't feel comfortable with that. But then I connected with the second guru, as you may know. I received mantras again. I wouldn't say I rejected that person, but actually I was rejected by that person, disowned as a disciple. And again, no need to enter into the details of that particular situation. Most of you know. If you don't know, we can always talk about it, no problem. So basically considering that, then the question is, where does leave my connection to the Sampradaya and Guru Parampara? Am I similar in a situation to the one who is not initiated, or do either initiation is valid in connection to my lineage? And of course, again, you will find here different people. I'm sure there's people who think Swami Padmanabha is totally disconnected, is out of shelter, it's out of mercy, it's not plugged in with the divine current channel. And I'm not here saying that to blame them or point to them, but I know there is people who think like that because I've heard it. Almost nobody of them have told me that directly, but you hear those things. And again, different ways of thinking. But again, for me, it's a too black and white thing. Like, okay, if I am initiated by someone and somehow I'm officially still in that connection, I'm in good situation. And if that's not the case, I'm totally out. And who knows? No, you have to examine everyone's heart to know what's going on there. Because I know so many people who are officially initiated by someone and have not been rejected, and they have not rejected their guru, but internally, they themselves have told me nothing's going on. There's not much going on there for different reasons. No? So my point is, we shouldn't take these things for granted, like one thing or the other warranties something. Connection to the parampara is not a formality, it's something internal, especially in our line coming from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where so much the concept of Siksha parampara is emphasized above the formal connection with Diksha, which I'm not down canceling Diksha here. But at the end of the day, Diksha is a mere formality if there is no substantial Siksha filling in the actual inner core of your being. Connection, openness, surrender, interaction. And again, not limited to one particular being. The scriptures say, okay, the Siksha is the essence of parampara, and you can have a number of Siksha gurus. To the point that eventually you enter into the land of Siksha gurus, Srila Siddham Maharaj will say, which entails the closer you are getting to the spiritual world, in one sense, the more you perceive how everyone is a Siksha guru. Right? If the end point, quote unquote, end point of entrance is spiritual world called the land of gurus, means everything is a guru. So it means that wherever you are now, in your progress, the closer you get to that, the more gurus you will have. The more gurus. And it doesn't mean that your gurus mean teachers that are teaching you officially. Your guru may become, as the Bhagavatam say, the sun, the moon, the bumblebee. Again, I don't want to sound New Agey saying that, but that's the Bhagavatam. I wouldn't dare to say Bhagavatam is New Agey. So the question, if I'm in a similar status to someone who is not initiated, again, that assumes that someone who is not initiated is in a certain status. Who knows what's the inner situation of someone not initiated? It's not that everyone who is not initiated are exactly in the same situation, and suddenly they are initiated and they're all in the same situation post-initiation. Now, it's like a very formulaic and mechanistic way of thinking. Before initiation, you were here, and now after initiation, you're here. But initiation is a process. Today I was reading from Srila Siddhar Maharaj about that, and he repeatedly, every time he says the word initiation, he attached the term, the process of initiation, which is not just the process that takes you to the day you receive initiation, but continues to overflow after the official day. So one who is initiated, one who is not initiated, what is initiation? Again, because if not, we are thinking very black and white. Okay, yesterday I was not initiated. Today I'm initiated. Many times we may not feel that much big of a difference between those 2 days. I mean, we may be happy and inspired by being initiated, but it doesn't mean that suddenly you are automatically enlightened and all your anarthas have disappeared and you are an absolutely different person. Not necessarily. So the process of initiation begins before the official day of initiation and continues after the official day of initiation. So someone who is not initiated, what does it mean even? What does it even mean? Right? You may have received official initiation, and in so many ways we are still uninitiated. And some people may have not yet received official Diksha in a parampara, but they have been initiated by so many life circumstances. So it's difficult to say. No, this is here, this is here. So it's, as we can see, it's way more nuanced than what we think. What it means to be initiated, not be initiated, be connected, not be connected. At the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. How they say, right? So it's not so much show me your credentials, show me your membership affiliation card. I mean, you can have all the cards you want, but still what the final question is, Bhavagrahi Janardana. Krishna is just inspecting what's in the core of your heart. So, and with this, I'm not trying to say all this to say, and I happen to be so deeply immersed in the essence of everything, therefore nobody can tell me nothing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we should be careful not to judge, and I'm not talking about me, but judge one another just based on credentials, affiliation, initiated, not initiated, and understand all these ideas in more fluid ways. No? Initiation is not a one-act performance, it's a process. In connection with the parampara is not depending on some formality, but on what's making your heart beat, right? So that will be my answer in that connection. Personally, so hopefully I don't sound too arrogant, but I feel myself very connected to the parampara and to the lineage. I don't feel I'm like in any rush to go to the market and get a guru, so to say, another one. I'm not against that either. I'm not against connecting or discovering relationships with sadhus. I mean, hope Krishna protect me that doesn't ever happen. But when that happens, how that happens, is not in my control, right? So, but I don't feel any rush. Like I'm lacking something crucial now, and I need urgently to plug in again. I think the plug is still in, and grace is coming, and mercy is coming. And for me to deny that will be delusional and ungrateful from my side. So to accept for me, and therefore to acknowledge this is an act of humility, hopefully. At least that's my attempt. And regarding the second part of the question, if I see both gurus in terms of purity, such as not seeing the guru materially, again, what's guru? As I mentioned in my book, in Radical Personalism, many times when scriptures speak about guru and invite the disciple for full surrender, when they say guru, they are conceiving the highest possible example of a guru, which doesn't happen to be the case always. So we should bear in mind that scriptures speak from that, let's say, idealistic place. Every time they speak about guru, they are taking for granted that the guru is the highest, best possible example of a guru. So yeah, in that case, you are not invited to see, or even if you see some relative imperfection, as the example I gave before, that doesn't get in the way of the situation of that great personality. But when someone serving in the role of guru behaves in ways that are not expected from a guru, and in a repeated way, and then there is a rationalizing trying to justify the unjustifiable, then one may need to exercise a different type of discernment. But again, going back to the first question, that doesn't mean that there was never bona fide there to begin with. So different currents may come on the journey. So when we say guru, again, and when we say guru is always perfect, always pure, we are talking about the essence of Guru Tattva emanating originally from the heart of the Godhead himself. Of course, that's totally free from all faults, absolute and pure. But that will be expressed through different channels and different agents in different ways and different degrees also. So as long as that's coming through someone from a genuine, sincere place, even if that person is not the highest type of Uttam Mahabhagavat, still if that's coming from a very authentic, honest place, that's to be fully embraced and accepted. And as long as that person remains honoring his or her integrity, that person is warranted to arrive to those highest peaks of realization. But if for some particular reason that happens not to be the case, that it happened to me, and you realize, oh, this person that I accepted as my guru is not behaving as such, and after trying repeated exchanges and talks, the thing is not improving, I may need to think in a different way than how I was thinking before that. So it happens, life happens. And I wouldn't say that by doing that you are offending guru, because again, if one comes like, no, you can never see any fault in the guru ever, so that opens the door for lots of abuse if a guru I mean, of course, you cannot see a fault in a guru if the guru behaves as a guru. Even if there are faults, there are totally minor mistakes, and I won't put them on the same scale as the real guruhood, guruness that is coming from that person. But if someone serving in the capacity of guru doesn't behave as such, then I'm no longer offending guru. Then I'm pointing a mistake or a grave mistake in an individual that at that particular moment is not representing guru, the department of guru, and therefore that particular action is not guru. I hope that helps. Guru Tattva Ki Jai. Okay, let's go for a few minutes to our breakout rooms, which for those who are joining for the first time, we are opening, Bhaktaras will open an invitation for us to share in small groups, continue churning together, hopefully having breakthrough at the end of the meeting, a few minutes, getting to share from a dynamic of congregation, trying to get to know each other in the churning and trusting that something else will come. Hopefully that brings further clarification, reconciliation to whatever needs still to be internalized and processed. So invited there, and see you in a few minutes. Since for whatever reason you cannot join, take these few minutes to do your own inner personal processing in your own heart. Yeah. Okay. Welcome you all back. Hoping you had a good churning, taking in our collective reflection, collective introspection. That's another form of Sankirtan. Do not forget. Like Rupa Goswami will say, Kirtan, one of the main acharya of Kirtan in our tradition is Sukadev Goswami. And he is not known for playing mridanga, harmonium, and singing, but for speaking, discussing the ultimate reality. So to do that collectively is Sankirtan as well. Okay, now let's go to Hari Vyasadev, though Bhaktiras is first because she didn't go as a host to the breakout rooms, but Hari Vyasadev was the next one in the line. You can unmute yourself. Welcome, Hari Vyasadev ji.
Thank you, Maharaj. But I think Kanopriya had her hand raised before me even, no?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We'll go to Kanopriya's hand, no problem, but you were first.
Okay. Pranam to you and be here today. I have a question which is, I think, of a perennial nature. It touches on different fields of wisdom. And it picks up on a conversation we recently had, and you encouraged me to share this in the group. So when reading Christian mystics, for example, it feels as if that whole stream of mysticism is based on Jesus is saying in Luke, the kingdom of heaven is within you. So the Christian mystics are definitely encouraging their readers and listeners to look within, look into our own hearts. When reading Saint Teresa of Avila, for example, she's speaking of the innermost chamber of her heart, and that personally definitely inspires me, and it resonates deeply with me. And when reading your radical personalism, if one is attentive when one is reading, actually, one quickly realizes that you're definitely emphasizing that same point. I felt that almost on every page there was the word inner transformation, inner journey, inner path. And sometimes it feels as if in our Gaudiya Vedanta, it's all outside. We're looking at something that is far above our heads or that is happening outside of our own hearts. So my question is, how do we as Gaudiyas enter that innermost chamber, in your opinion, and what comes to your mind when hearing that statement of Jesus, the kingdom of heaven is within you?
When comes to my mind when hearing which statement? Sorry, your audio interrupted. Got interrupted there.
Great. When hearing the statement, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Yeah.
Well, immediately I think of Srila Siddhamara saying Vrindavan is a state of consciousness. That's immediate parallel that comes to my mind. On Prabhupada saying also, I quote that in Evolution and Divine Love, right? Like, there's no difference between the kingdom of God and the practice of a devotional service. So that's what comes immediately, since you asked at the end of your question. Of course, I agree with you that sometimes the emphasis seems to have been more on external attainment, so to say. Like, to be honest, that's how to say. I mean, first you referred to my second book saying in Radical Personalism, you found that emphasis on the inner development, inner transformation, inner this, inner that. And for me, as I said many times, Radical Personalism is my attempt to articulate Gaudiya Vedanta, our own tradition, in a way that is coherent for me to continue practicing it. For me not to feel that I'm betraying myself while continuing to practice, right? Because you can betray yourself in the name of your religion if you are continuing to practice it from a place that is not coherent, not relevant, not relatable. So, and again, for me, it's not an attempt to. I don't think I have like, how to say, found the perfect excuses to explain and put verses together in a way that actually is not happening, to create my own fictitious version of spirituality so I can continue practicing. Now, it's not that I adjusted the whole tradition for the survival of Swami Padmanabha, so to say. But for me, it was more because sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes there's a fine line between putting things together to justify your own stuff and trying to make sense of different statements of the scripture and trying to read them coherently, no? Hermeneutics, no? In a way of how these apparently isolated statements in these books or from these teachers make proper sense when understood as emphasizing a particular theme, and how to explain this other thing that seems to contradict, which is a more relative detail. And there's a place to do all that, and there's a place also to do that in a way that is justifying and justifiable, right? So, of course, in order to engage in that exercise successfully, one first must be quite rooted in the tradition. Again, I don't want to imply I'm the one rooted in the tradition, but I think I've spent some time practicing and studying Vaishnavism, my tradition. And from that place, radical personalism came, trying to put together in a hopefully coherent and tasteful way all these different statements from our sacred scriptures in conversation with other wisdom traditions, and showing this universality of emphasis about different things, and for example the inner world, the inner experience. And yeah, maybe you or maybe others may have been introduced to the tradition, or the main exposure to the tradition was more, I don't know, otherworldly or oriented, like you have to attain that place. But that doesn't mean that that's the tradition, or that doesn't mean that's the mystical reading of the tradition. Because as much as you speak about mystical Christianity and the inner world, that's the minority of Christianity. Most Christians do not think in those terms. And most because the mystical side of any tradition is generally the minority of it, and only that minorities are the ones who think in inner terms, in terms of internal experience. Most people who subscribe to a tradition is more for social religious reasons and social fitting in, and getting rewards and being a good boy, and it's more transactional. It's more about correctedness than connectedness. It's more transactional than transformational, and so on and so forth. So it's not just about Gaudiya Vaishnavism or Christianity, it's about human psyche as a whole. But again, then you can, if you take the time to study the mystics of any given tradition, you will find there are in another category, so to say. And they are probably closer to each other, even from sister tradition. The mystics are closer to each other than the mystic of one tradition closer to a non-mystic of the same tradition. So So for me, a way of, I mean, I cannot avoid going to the word sambandha here, and that's also a section of radical personalism that I try to emphasize, like having a proper conception of the concept, right? We like with any other tradition are filled with concepts and ideas and knowledge and content, but how to conceive the concept. No? Because the same concept can be presented from a ultra institutionalized place and from a deeply mystical place. The same idea, the idea of God. You can weaponize God forever to justify the worst of the worst. Or you can bring that same word to create the deeper healing and mystical redemption and so on and so forth. There's not the word God or the reality of God is not a problem, it's what we do with those things. So for me, Sambandha is so crucial to have a proper conception of the ideas that we are being given in any given tradition, how to receive them, how to internalize them, how to understand them in ways, again, that are not creating a fear-driven orientation, that are not setting the path for intimidation and fitting in and betraying yourself in the name of the divine. And how to make sense of what doesn't make sense, because there are many things that still may not make sense and may feel contradictory or disturbing, passages in scripture, stories, words, so many things. But many times there are things that shouldn't disturb us, but disturbs us because we were wrongly introduced to them. Right? And again, this is not to get stuck in the past. Oh, I was wrongly introduced to them. If I will just not be wrongly introduced to them, now I will be this or that. Well, you were wrongly introduced to them. Or maybe it was not even wrongly. It was the best possible introduction that the person who introduced you was able to give you. And it was your best possible capacity to understand what was given to you. So probably both were trying their best. And still it was not the deepest and the most mystical. But it was what it was. And probably it had a purpose at that chapter of the journey. But maybe now it's not enough. So we need to drill deeper. Eho bahya aggi kaha ar, like Mahaprabhu will say, Ramananda Roy. That superficial, go deeper. That superficial, go deeper. Maybe it was not superficial before, now it's superficial. Let's go deeper. So for me, it's not so much about, okay, discovering the mystical side of my tradition means changing everything I'm doing, how I'm, no, it's just opening myself to grasping all this content that comes from any given tradition in deeper ways, and leaving that door open. Like I shared today, since we are talking about some of these topics and about mystics, today is the birthday of Henry Nouwen, who is a very dear Christian mystic to me. He passed years ago. And I shared today one quote from him connected to this, I think, and I would like to share with you, in connection to remaining opening to a further disclosure of the eternal, ever-evolving mystery that God is. So he will say, just as God cannot be caught or comprehended in any specific idea, concept, opinion, or conviction, he cannot be defined by any specific feeling or emotion either. God cannot be identified with a good, affectionate feeling toward our neighbor, or with the sweet emotion of the heart, or with ecstasies, movements of the body, or handling of snakes. God is not just our good inclinations, our fervor, our generosity of our love. All these experiences of the heart may remind us of God's presence, but their absence does not prove God's absence. God is not only greater than our mind, but He's also greater than our heart. And just as we have to avoid the temptation of adapting God to our small concepts, we also have to avoid adapting Him to our small feelings. So again, not to feel yourself bad, you have a small concept, a small feeling, but just not taking for granted that I already understood the divine. So a mystic or mystical approach to the tradition is that state of ongoing openness to further disclosure, never taking things for granted, never trying to master the tradition, like as a way of controlling it, of measuring it, of making it of colonizing, as I like to say. You cannot colonize the infinite. No, that's absurd. That's an oxymoron. That's a contradiction of terms. The moment I say infinite, it's uncolonizable, right? So yeah, living Gaudiya Vedanta or particular tradition mystically means that. It means entering to that space, and from that space of humility, of openness, of coexisting with mystery, relating to all that the tradition is, to all the verses and practices and concepts, again, not as something to gain mastery over, to control, to finish, but as further doors of disclosure that have no end. In our relation to one another, the same, not taking things for granted. So these are universal patterns that make a mystic in every tradition. It's not about read this very unique esoteric book and now you're on the mystical side of Gaudiya Vedanta. I know some devotees think like that. Oh, I'll go to Radhakund and I will read this hyper confidential leelas and esoteric books, and now I'm on the mystical side of the tradition. Not necessarily. I have nothing against those books, of course, but just doing that doesn't warranty anything. From which place you are doing that, how you are understanding that, how you are living that. I mean, I care how you play out that in your daily life. Like Ilya Delio will say, religion is not so much what you believe in, but how you live your life. Anyone can bring their official list of beliefs, religious beliefs. According to my tradition, I believe in this. I don't care. I want to see how you play out those things in the day-to-day, how you relate to everyone, what's going on in your heart again. And that's the most difficult task, right? Easy religion is just subscription-based. And you have the membership card and you're in, so to say. But mystics are in a different journey, in a different adventure. Going back to Elia Delia, she will say mystic is, she will say God, but I replace God is a mystic, of course. A mystic is more interested in adventure than in preserving the status quo, right? So it's all about adventure. In Sanskrit, one name for Krishna is Urukrama, which means the great adventurer. So yeah, for me, in order to practice or to have a mystical experience of our tradition means, first of all, to receive a mystical orientation to it, to be formed and trained in our eyes, in our seeing, how to see everything mystically. I'm reading now one book by Mirabai Starr called Ordinary Mysticism, and basically speaks about that. Now, mystic is not, probably one first thing to do regarding mysticism is to deconstruct all your false ideas about what it means to be a mystic. Because we tend to over-idealize and romanticize everything, right? So mystic is this guy who's having visions all day and floating when he wants and lives with a loincloth in the cave in the Himalaya. And I'm not saying that there are no mystics there, but you can just be yourself and be a mystic. That's actually the only one that makes sense. Start being a mystic where you are. Start to see the crackings of the divine entering through you in everything, especially in the moments that you still label most ordinary. Mysticism can be there. Yeah, mysticism has to do with mystery. The word mysticism has to do with mystery, has to do with mist. Now it's misty today. Has to do with a willingness to coexist with that which we cannot control. That's not an easy journey. No wonder mystics are always the minority, and many times the minority gets killed and stigmatized by the majority of that same group. So that's the faith journey at the end of the day. Is if faith means, as I like to say, trusting the mystery, way of being patient with the mystery and trusting it, trusting while waiting. And while waiting, you are knowing that so much is coming and you are trying to open yourself to perceive. Because reality is mystical in principle. I mean, God is in every atom. You cannot get more mystical than that. Just stay with the notion of omnipresence. That should blow up all your faculties. Now, try to just stay there. There's not a place where God is not. That for you have enough for the day, and more than a day. But the problem is we don't stay enough time with any of these things, especially in the world we live today. We are multitasking and doing many things at the same time, and none of them profoundly. We are multi-superficially tasking, especially if we become addicted to social media and scrolling and training our brain to just stay a few seconds with any given idea. So we are not training ourselves to be deep. We are not training for inhabiting the depths of things. So even spirituality ends up being superficial. But when you train yourself for the depths, you go to the most superficial thing, so-called, and there's mysticism there. But you will only be able to perceive that if you are allowing the time, the speed, the pace to enter into that. And sadhana is about that. Crafting a daily sacred time and space to have experiential moments of that, and then carrying that along throughout your day, hopefully. That takes time. Nobody can do that for you. It's a choice at the end of the day. Do you want to do that or not? So, again, that's how it works, at least in my experience and opinion, in what I think I've understood. So we don't make a cheap performance of mysticism. We don't make a cheap we don't give a cheap example of esoteric realities or the highest, especially in our tradition. I say we have such detailed, deep, profound, high depictions of the ultimate reality. And the higher it gets, the more careful we should be in how we handle that. Not to the point of being neurotic and develop like an immune system against those realities. But also being careful not to take for granted that I'm already fully getting that. Because that's not the attitude of those who inhabit those realms eternally. The sheer humility, sheer willingness to unlearn, sheer beginner's mind, absolute pridelessness. That's a huge price to pay. It's absolute death of the false self. You have nothing to claim your own. No. That's the only currency in the market in eternity. The moment you want to bring in any other currency in the market, you go in jail for how do you say, this false money that looks real.
Counterfeit.
Counterfeit, yeah, counterfeit. Anyhow, going rambling along and along. Some words on that are evocative. You press a button and Swami Padmanabha got a little triggered. But yeah, I think it's a very valid concern. From which place we want to participate in my tradition. And again, not to condemn or stigmatize those who are yet not willing to pay the price of being a mystic and are participating from a more transactional place. Krishna says in the Gita, right? Different people approach me, and many people approach me just because they want relief from suffering. They have their own personal agendas, and I'm the endless provider. I welcome, but I also acknowledge degrees of quality in the approach. I'm reciprocated with everyone according to their approach, but there is people who approach me for my own sake, Krishna says. I become so moved by that people. They don't want my money, so to say, my opulence, my knowledge. They don't want even liberation from me. They want me, and I want them. They want me and nothing else but me. I want them and nothing else but them. That's our ideal. We may not be there yet, but that's a very noble ideal of dedication and selfless giving in love. So we don't want to water down the ideal. no matter how far we are from the ideal, we shouldn't water down the ideal so we feel closer to the ideal. Oh, that will be self-deceiving, deceiving ourselves. And sometimes it happens. We call that sahaja. You water down the ideal so you feel closer to the ideal. No, you keep the ideal in all its nobility and depth and glory, and be willing to pay the price of acknowledging where you are in relation to the ideal, even if it's lifetimes away from it. That's fine, no problem. At least you are having an honest, realistic assessment of where you are in connection to the ideal. That's what we want. We don't want to cheat ourselves in connection to the highest ideal. That will be the highest form of betrayal. The nobility of the ideal is of such nature. We want to keep the ideal for what it is in its throne, in all its glory. And in that context, we want to acknowledge where we are. And no matter where you are, if you're in the pursuit of that ideal, Srila Maharaj will say the ideal is so noble that even if you are lifetimes away from the ideal, your journey is already absolutely glorious because you are on the journey to that ideal. So nobody cares. The real people do not care where you are in terms of that. Oh, you are pursuing that ideal, still you are messy, you are falling and you are failing miserably in the pursuit of that ideal. They're not seeing that you are falling and messing, and they are only seeing the part of the sentence that says you are pursuing that ideal. Wow, that's it. So just try to safeguard a proper, undiluted conception of this ideal, and that's a warranty of success. And of course, be honest about it, about the implications of having that idea in your life in a sustainable, non-neurotic way. Yeah. Okay, one more breakout room for a few minutes, and then we go back. We have still a few raised hands. So hope you had a good journey. And in my own private journey, what came also that I want to add before we go to the next question was, as much as we don't want to dilute the ideal in order to feel closer to it, then the nature and the nobility of ideal is such that it keeps getting closer to us. So at the same time, as far as we may be, or we may feel we are from that ideal, the nature of a broader and deeper spiritual ideal is such that it has to be, gets as closer as possible. So there's no need to try to feel bad about feeling far from it. There's always a way to feel not far from it. No? Like Krishna will say in the Sri Upanishad that the absolute is the farthest from the farthest and is the closest from the closest. So it all depends how you want to approach reality. You can feel God as far as anyone else and as close as anyone else. So anyhow, that was my footnote to the previous one. We have Bhakti Rasa raising her hand now, and then we have Kanupriya. And I thought Narottam also then raised his hand, and I don't know. Let's see. Let's go to Bhakti Rasa now.
Thank you, Maharaj. So that was such a beautiful contemplation on mysticism and the inner world. This is a little juxtaposed, but I'm sure you can make a connection. There's a conversation right now going on in parts of the Gaudiya Vaishnav community regarding female Diksha gurus. So I'm wondering, not just if you would like to weigh in on the quote-unquote debate, but how it is also that one would make distinctions, and how would one think about these things, not just what to think, but how to think about these kinds of questions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, of course, this is a conversation that sometimes manifests on the surface every here and now. It's coming again, but it has been going on for years and decades. And certain particular communities within the broader Gaudiya Vaishnav community. I personally do not talk much about it because, to be honest, I don't feel there's much to talk about it, in the sense that the whole thing, in one sense, is absurd, in the sense that it will be like if I ask you, in order to be the president of the United States, can you have black hair? Or in order, can someone who is tall be a doctor? Or can someone be a father if he was born in Portugal and not in Spain? It's like what you're talking about, right? It's like wrong question altogether. No? We have to, okay, we can speak about the qualities, ideal qualities in a teacher, in a president, in a father, in a mother. That's another conversation. But to frame the discussion of starting to question in terms of if a woman can be a guru or not, that's like, that for me in itself shows that there is a way deeper misconception, series of misconceptions about Guru Tattva. And the whole discussion on whether a woman can be guru or not is the tip of the iceberg. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Even if at some point that's solved, quote unquote, still that was the tip of the iceberg of a deeper series of misunderstandings about Guru Tattva. And again, with this, I'm not aiming at anyone, any group, any person, individual. It's just how things come. And this is my opinion. Again, I don't feel the need to bring examples in the Gaudiya history of women acting as female Diksha gurus, as they are, of course. And I have nothing against someone trying to put together some of those historical details to prove. But my point is, again, when we speak about someone being a guru, it has nothing to do with is the guru woman or man or whatever. It's which are the actual qualifications of a guru. And if you go to the scripture and to the main verses that describe the qualities of the guru, there are three main verses in different scriptures, which basically saying the same thing. The three verses and the three verses give qualities of the guru and the disciple, and starting with the disciple, interestingly enough. And in none of those verses you will find, okay, part of the quality of a guru or of the prerequisite is that he has to be male body, or it's like, has nothing to do. I mean, guru is all about Mahaprabhu se kiba vipra kiba nyasi sudra kenenai jai Krishna tattva se guru hai. Period. Which means it doesn't matter if you are a Brahmin, kiba vipra kiba nyasi, it doesn't matter if you're a sannyasi, Sudra, it doesn't matter if you're a Sudra, like, doesn't matter any of that. Ye Krishna Tattva se Guru hai. If you are a Tattva, a knower of the reality of Krishna, in theory and in practice, you are Guru. That's it. So, of course, the fact that there are many conversations revolving around whether women can be gurus or not, for me, again, point to some other series of misunderstandings, or sometimes, unfortunately, they are not even misunderstandings. In some cases, there may be more power struggles and politics. And maybe people have a clear idea of being a guru has to do with something else rather than gender or whatever, sexuality. But sometimes there are other interests in the table. In some cases, again, I'm not talking in every single case, but sometimes big groups need big incomes, and the big money may come from one particular group, and that particular group may have some cultural baggage in which women are not supposed to be gurus, and if we contradict that, they will stop participating, they may leave us, money will stop coming. So there are a whole series of layers of other concerns, which I can understand. There are concerns. You have an institution, you have buildings, you have to maintain them, but never to the point of, in my opinion, of changing the Siddhanta or betraying the essence of your tradition. Because the priorities then start to shift, and then you start to betray the whole reason why you joined in the first place, probably. So yeah, of course, it makes me sad that even the conversations are happening, and some other things, again, I don't want to go into details, but that for me make no sense. Like sometimes I've heard some devotees saying, no, okay, women can be gurus, but only if they are of the caliber of Janava Mata, which means you have to be like an eternal associate of Krishna. In that case, you can be guru, but men can be gurus if they are not in that caliber. because men carry some inherent extra value by, I mean, what are we talking about? Well, that's an absolute departure from from an essential grasp of Guru Tattva. So again, that's why I insist, and I don't talk much about female Diksha Guru, because that for me is not even, it shouldn't be even a question. And that's just at the tip of the iceberg of deeper misunderstandings on Guru Tattva, which I accept is a complex Tattva. So I'm not stigmatizing and condemning people. Again, some people may have genuine, innocent misunderstandings. Some other people may not have that misunderstanding, but may have some separate interests that in themselves become misunderstandings or create misunderstandings. So, and again, it's tied with other things. People, even women who have disciple people who will like them to be their gurus, but they're afraid of doing so because if I take the step, I may be banished or chastised or kicked out, and I will not belong, and I'm betraying my guru, the founder of the institution. And all that is a misconception to begin with. The fact that you think all those things is in itself a misconception. It's in itself, in my opinion, is a non-substantial understanding what it means to be a disciple of this guru, a member of this tradition. So if someone kicks me out for speaking the truth, then I'm so happy that I was kicked out from that place because I was in a place where truth was not the main currency. So it was unbearable and I had to be kicked out. Thank God for that. Yeah, it will be challenging, so many, whatever, but at the end of the day, it's way more challenging to betray yourself and not be at peace with your own pillow. So, like going to the example of Prabhupada and his ISKCON society, like, of course, we know that many big part of this debate is in that context. And again, some women gurus are afraid of taking the step of giving guidance and shelter because of fear of canceling and deportation from the institution. So there's fear and intimidation, and that starts to become the currency, which is the exact opposite of what Prabhupada wanted to begin with. When the ISKCON papers were being signed and all these rules were written for any institution, Rule 1, Rule 2, 1.2, 1.3, he said, okay, all this complex stuff we have to sign, but the main rules here is love and trust. That should be the main rule of ISKCON. And he said, if at any point that's no longer the main rule, the same effort we have put into creating all this, we have to use the same effort into dismantling that thing. And again, many times institutions betray their original purpose. Again, and it may not be the fault of one particular individual, it's just how things are and happen and tend to become. And many times things need to collapse and be born again and die completely and be reappear in a new incarnation, in a new iteration of themselves. So anyhow, I don't want to go along, but that's basically my view on that. I don't know if that's clear or there's some particular thing that you wanted me to address, Bhakti Rasa, that I didn't, or...
No, that was great. Just a breath of fresh air to come in. And it's interesting you say, that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Well,
Yeah.
we're entering global warming, so.
Maybe it will melt, the tip will melt.
Yes.
But still, there will be something else to melt. Yeah. There's lots of melting that we need, right? Melting of so many things. False belief, false structures, hardness in our heart, hardness in our way of thinking, narrow-mindedness. Let it all melt. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's skip breakout rooms in this one and let's go to Kanupriya. She was raising her hand also.
Okay, so it's a totally different topic.
Never entirely different. It's all connected.
Let's see. It's about dreaming.
About what?
Dreaming.
Dreaming. Okay.
Dreaming, what we do usually during the night, not...
Hopefully during the day also.
Yeah, I mean more the sleep dream.
Okay.
And so I was thinking about it because in the moment I wake up early and then I get up, I chant my round or some rounds, and then when I get tired again, I take a rest. Normally it's 6, 7 o'clock. And when at this time, I have such crazy dreams. And then I wonder why it is, because it's just, I mean, I just chanted and then I get the most craziest dreams, much more crazy than during the night. During the night, it's more a digestion of what I experienced during the day and so on. But it seems that just the time plays a role. And then I thought, okay, there's so many different forms of dreaming. I mean, I know that some people they dream more in a symbolic way or in a visionary way, and then we have stories where Krishna appears in a dream, many stories, and so my question is, okay, what is dreaming and how can we explain all these different forms? And especially, is it possible for us to somehow open our heart or our mind to higher levels of dreaming so that we don't have to tolerate these crazy dreams anymore, but that we can really receive some guidance or whatever, that it's helpful for our spiritual life?
Well, yeah, I will begin saying that if we are dreaming whatever we are dreaming, and I'm not asking here for any public confession of bring your dreams to the public, because sometimes, yeah, they could be pretty embarrassing, right? Or pretty whatever, right? Because again, it's all tied to these ideas of who we are, or in a dream we are, things are out of control in one sense. So things start to come that we are like, oh, that's coming from somewhere. It's not entirely absurd, right? It's not like absolute randomness and this shouldn't be happening at all. For some reason, we are having that dream. And I'm not saying that for anyone to feel blame or feel bad about it. But there is a whole science of decoding dreams, right? And there is a place for that. And decoding dreams in a way that is, again, healing. Because I don't know, like I remember, for example, last year, we went to a men's retreat in California, organized by a group inaugurated by Father Richard Rohr. And they were talking about different things. It was like almost a week retreat. And at one point, the dream topic came, and it was a men's retreat, but it can go beyond men. And he was talking about sexual dreams, that people can have sexual dreams. And he was saying that many times people feel bad about that, feel guilty, feel shame, feel this, feel that. And he was trying to say, well, probably that means that the dream in which you are having intimate sexual contact with someone who may not even be your partner is speaking for your need for intimacy. It takes the form of that particular form of intimacy, but maybe your subconscious expressing its longing for intimacy, which doesn't necessarily need to take the form of sexual intimacy, but it's a message. So you choose to decode that dream in that way and ask yourself, okay, in which ways I may be neglecting my intimacy, in which ways I may not be showing myself fully vulnerably to people that I need to, rather than just picking a whip and feeling I'm such a lusty boy or lady and I must be doing something wrong. That's why I'm not dreaming with Rasa Leela or whatever. I'm just giving one example, right? So for some reason, dreams, again, I'm not an expert in the department, but I know enough as to say just that dreams are messages and messengers, even when they look like absolutely like absurd, as you say, like, okay, crazy dream, like this tung and this person and this the other person appear, and I suddenly was in India, and then I was at my mom's house, and the dog of my whatever cousin who lives on Saturn appeared, and it's like I'm not saying every dream is like that, and you're from what you say, that's not the case, thank God. So, and many times again, we may be able to get a clearer understanding. Sometimes some dreams are more easily, how to say, decoded than others, and some others may be more kind of like a cathartic shower of content. And it may be also ways in which our subconscious mind is processing stuff and moving stuff that we may not be able to fully make sense of it. Of course, again, if every single night and all of your dreamings are that may be a little bit more disturbing. But if it's just one part, and of course you are connecting that with your chanting, your morning sadhana, and of course you know the answer. That's because you're chanting so badly that then you have these horrible dreams. It's all your fault, Kanupriya. Don't edit this video and make a reel out of that. Don't do it. Don't do it. I know you're tempted. Don't do it. Finally, you have good chance to defame me fully to the ground. Again, chanting also, as Mahaprabhu will say, Chetodarpana Marjanam. Right? Chetodarpana Marjanam. Cleaning the mirror of the subconscious mind. And sometimes the cleaning means you move dust. I mean, you take away dust, but also some dust remains and is moving. So maybe if you're chanting and praying and trying to do some profound inner work, and then you go to rest for a while, yeah, that's what Teresa is commenting. There may be some dust cloud still. Now, it doesn't mean you are going crazy. It doesn't mean that you are doing it wrong. It doesn't mean this shouldn't be happening. Also, it doesn't mean that you should necessarily be overtly concerned about that and trying like to fully decrypt those dreams to finally understand what, oh, it could be, again, the reaction of that subconscious part after a deep session of prayer and chanting and sadhana, and things start to move. And in the beginning, it looks like sheer chaos that makes no sense at all. And gradually the pieces get to be more accommodated and the puzzle starts to make sense. So again, there is a place to allow that to happen and to be okay with the uncertainty of it, right? Not wanting just like, I want to know fully why that's happening. You may never know. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try to make sense of as much as you can of things that happen in your life, even your dream life. But sometimes there are things that clearly go way above our understanding, and we should be okay and trust that eventually many of those things will reveal themselves in more meaningful ways, more intelligible, comprehensive ways. Yeah. Yeah, I myself keep like a dream journal next to my bed. When I woke up in the morning, if I remember some dream, I write about it and reflect about it, because again, it's my subconscious speaking, and there's always a message that can be, again, it's not like my main sadhana and my life revolves around that, but it's also something, some input that is coming. So everything can be your guru, right? You can learn from everything. And again, as much as your question is not about it, but don't forget also dreaming during the day. It's a healthy way. Dreaming in the sense of exercising our imagination, which is not the same as fantasy, no? But daring to imagine alternative realities and alternative versions of yourself and alternative ways of being that are possible, but will be only possible if you imagine them first. So that's another counterbalance of the dreaming world. I hope that helps, Kanupriya. Sorry we cannot bring absolute closure.
Let's see. I will tell you tomorrow morning.
Okay. Now we will be all following very closely your daily dreamings.
Yeah, but also, I also had in mind, okay, is it helpful to write down the dreams? Because I know that many people do it, and maybe I
Yes.
will try this. And and maybe then it seems not so crazy anymore. Let's see.
Yeah, sometimes when in articulating what one has experienced helps to further decode the density of that content, so to say. But again, I think there's a healthy place to stay with the unknown also, with uncertainty, and trusting the eventual disclosure of that also, if that has to happen.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before Trivikram Prabhu raised his hand, but now I'm seeing just Sumukhi sitting there. So maybe Trivikram Prabhu left. And also I saw Narottam Prabhu raising his hand, but...
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. You're in the different account. Okay. I didn't
No,
see you.
if you need a question, otherwise it can wait. But if you've got a moment, I can just. Last week you were mentioning communities when we were talking, or when we were having our celebration.
Yeah.
There was some mention about the aspiration to create. I'm hearing an echo from my other room. There's an aspiration to create intentional communities. I wondered how you see communities. Many of us, or some of us, have been involved with creating or being part of communities, and to varying degrees of success. But I suppose you might say historically within our institution, the ISKCON institution, it hasn't had a great track record. And I know that when I first came to the devotees, I was actually quite attracted by the idea of living off the land, living simply, growing our own food. And also there was very much an emphasis in the kind of narrative that we were hearing, a very sort of us against the rest of the world, the survivalism kind of paradigm. And, it seemed to be reinforced by comments that Prabhupada had made about living in an autonomous, self-sufficient way. And over the years, we've found that, some of those ideals were just that. They seem to be a little bit over-idealized. And I wondered many times whether Krishna really had this as his own plan, whether this was Krishna's plan to do this, or whether we had the wrong consciousness, that we're approaching it from the survivalism kind of psychologically atheistic paradigm. And yeah, I just wondered if you had a few thoughts on that, because what would the ideal community look like to you, with proper elders, with proper realization and maturity in that?
Well, thank you. And how this is connected to what I just said at the end in my reply to Kanupriya about imagination, right? Conceiving, imagining something first before implementing it. Because sometimes there's an attempt to implement things without proper imagination or enough imagination and proper conception of things, and then the implementation doesn't work. So for me, and again, I'm not a community designer by any means. Just let's be clear about it. At least in certain ways. In another way, here we have it. This is an intentional community for me. All of us here today. In one sense, that's the community. Of course, I've talked about the 3D community as well, but in one sense, this is the community already. And I'm absolutely, of course, I'm not naive enough as to think that one day all of you will be willing and able to sell your properties and we will all be living close to each other. Not, probably not. So, I mean, I'm not against that, but probably not each one of us. But for me, this is community. So building intentional community, that's all this we are having doing the last 2 years. That has been that. And for me, that's also warming up for whatever any other forms of community may need to take place in the future, if they have to. If they have to. And if they have to, still that will be with a proper assessment that those who are willing to participate in that are actually equipped to live in community. Because it's not enough for me that you tell me, Maharaj, I would like to go and live or whatever. Let's see how much you can live with other people. Even if you're not living in the same building, like let's see if you can be good neighbors with each other. Because that's not always the case. And sometimes it may start nicely and ends up being a little bit more messy and we cannot control that. Okay. So for me, that's the idea. No? For me, the building of the community already started a few years ago. And it's going on now, even there are no bricks being put. But for me, this is the foundation of the community. Laying the foundation is the work we are doing, meeting, sharing, getting to know each other, meeting in 3D a few times a year, hopefully. That's all part of the building of the community. Eventually, if that takes a more concrete shape somewhere in the globe, and some of you may want and like to, that's another thing, and I have no clue if that will happen and how. I would like to, but it's not just me liking it. There are so many things that need to be in place. And in that context, let me say this. It's a little bit off topic, but it's related to something you mentioned. You spoke about Krishna's design plan. Sorry, guys, to say, but I don't believe in that. I don't believe in the Krishna's design plan. That sounds very toxic for me. Like very predetermined. Krishna has a design plan and you just have to align with the plan. So there is no contribution. My will doesn't matter. He's not interested in my input. He just have the whole plan and you just surrender to that. That's not healthy theology. So, and I'm saying that, and I'm going off topic because still I hear so many of the Vaishnavas speaking in those terms. And I know, I know that most of you have heard that for decades. Krishna's plan, Krishna's plan, Krishna's plan. But where doesn't Shastra say that Krishna has a plan? I mean, of course, God has an intention. He wants to relate and he's who he is. But it's not that he has already master plan, all finished from beginning to end. And you just have to fit in with the design plan, nothing else. That's not a healthy relationship. Imagine I invite you to a relationship and I tell you, I already have the master plan for this. And you just need to adjust to that. And then we can have a good relationship. You will be calling the police minimum. So, but we project those toxic ideas on God, even in the words we use. Krishna's plan, that's totally disempowering because you don't have any say in the relationship. So, and that's a way of not taking responsibility also. No, because it was Krishna's plan or Krishna's arrangement, whatever word you choose to use. That. So sorry, I don't want to go off topic totally, but it's a little bit tied to all this. Of course, Krishna has a will, an intention. It's participating in relationship, but doesn't mean that he has a will to the point that nobody else has will. No, it's not that his plan is so all-pervading that nobody can have any input in anything because he already has a full finished plan. But also not to the point that, no, only my plan matters and Krishna cannot intervene in my life. That's not what we want. It's like with any healthy relationship. Anyhow, going back to community topic. Again, I trust we are already in that. We are testing the waters, getting to know each other, meeting each other for a few days, for 1 week, a year. And already sometimes we have a few messy chapters in that. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, great, we are getting to know each other. Because also from Zoom, you can just over idealize and project on everyone and think, oh, they are so nice, so beautiful. And I'm not saying you are not so nice and so beautiful, you are. But part of the niceness and beauty is that you are messy as well. And you have your stuff, your wounds, your unresolved issues. And those things play out when you live close to other people. They get to know you and you get to know them. And hopefully after getting to know each other, you still choose to the relationship and you still choose unconditional love, which means I love you despite this, and that, as I'm being loved despite this, and that. And not everyone is ready for that. Let's be honest. I've lived in community for decades and it was beautiful. I mean, that's why I'm still talking about it. It's not that but I've seen so much dysfunctional stuff also without anyone's bad intention, just that maybe there was not enough foundation, enough time preparing the ground, and enough time to analyze from which place each member is coming to participate. Are there projections? Are there unresolved stuff that they expect the community to magically solve all that? Or so many possibilities can be there. So, yeah, personally, I do not see a community that will be like in an us and them pattern. Like we have our community, us against the world. I wouldn't say that Prabhupada had that intention either, though it may have been presented as such. But of course, I don't believe in us and them. There's only us. Okay? Them are also us. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There's only one family. There's no us and them. There's us and us. So it's only us. So yeah, open to whatever needs to be manifest. Of course, not being lazy, just sitting on a couch and waiting for everything to fall magically. Okay, this is the land, this is the place, this is the people. I mean, you know that whatever you eventually decide to do, it will start in a certain way. It will be messy, it will be difficult. Maybe some people may jump in or join. So many things can happen. Maybe one may try a community and it may not work. And I wouldn't say that was a failure. I mean, I've lived in communities that at one point were unsustainable for different reasons, but I wouldn't say that was a failure. I mean, it was great, it was beautiful as it lasted, and if you know when to close a community that really needs to be closed, that's also part of its success. You could bring a proper, healthy closure, ending to it. We are not very good with endings. Of course, I'm not with this before even opening a 3D community already saying that it will be closed at one point. But it's just being realistic about so many potential dynamics. So for me, the main thing now is to go deeper into what it means to be part of an intentional community here now, as much as we can among ourselves. And I trust that if each one of you do our homework, or those of us who do our homework, that will eventually take the whole thing to its next natural chapter in a very organic way. I trust that if we learn to relate to each other, those who choose to, from a place of openness and connectedness and very healthy way, at one point it will become basically irresistible. Okay, the next step is let's have something together in physical terms. My point is, it should happen in that way. Even if some of you may not be able to do that for obvious reasons of travel, family, work, but the drawing should come from that place. That there has been so much community already built in how we relate to each other, like we are doing now, that at one point is as they say in English, how they say it's a no-brainer or something like that. It's like, of course, yes. There's no. It should be from that natural, irresistible place. If not, if it's like force and like trying to convince others or yourself, and it won't be sustainable. So yeah, that's basically where I am at. I have no rush. I have no plan. Krishna has no plan. we are all trying to follow along in the present moment, trying to honor things as they unfold and trying to make the best of them, hopefully, and trusting that that will take us to the next chapter, the next level, and so on and so forth. What do you think, Trivikram? You're ruminating.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of nice things that you said there. I think, like, for me, first and foremost, this satsang that we're here part of is part of community.
Yeah.
And I really feel that the fact that I'm here and we're all here is for a very real reason, so that it's not chance.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that community, I don't think.
I'm sorry, I want to interrupt you, but in relation to what you say, for me, this is the most important part in one sense. And
Oh,
even if
absolutely.
eventually there is a 3D community and most of you cannot join, that doesn't make you less of a member of the community. Not at all. So just not to create those type of ideas, because I know sometimes in old mentalities and devotional communities, there were like inside devotees and outside devotees. No? And those who lived in the temple were the inner associates, and the other ones were the external ones. And that's nonsense for me, with all respect, because
Yeah,
your
I hope.
belonging is something that goes in your heart. It's not about in which building you're
Yeah.
living. So some may be able to believe in the 3D community, some may not, and that's totally secondary. Just to make that clear forever.
Yeah, no, I hope I'm not implying that by my
No.
comments.
I'm not saying you were implying. Just you gave me the chance to clarify that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel. I also feel that community is not necessarily a destination. It's an ever evolving phenomena, and that the idea of we're going to start something and then that's the end of it, sort of thing, is kind of a little bit of a misconception also.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I just think that because you mentioned it, it's a conversation that's nice to have,
Yeah.
because many
It's
of us down this road for some time, and it's just good to churn it over and know where it really sits in the on the foundational level. And I think it is very much community based on that radical origin, in a sense, the radical personal origin rather than a physical manifestation of things.
Yeah.
And certainly not the us and them thing. I think that's really not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
That's why I thank you. That's why I mentioned that on the passing the other day, but it's not that I'm talking about that the whole day, because it's not the most important consideration for me. At the same time, it's something that if it happens in the nice way, it would be nice, and I'm there to mention it. But for me, yeah, we are already building communities, an ongoing process, and even having conversations about communities is in itself building the ongoing community, right? And I trust these exchanges will take us to wherever they need to take us, each one of us. Okay, thank you, Trivikram Prabhu. And I'm seeing Jamuna raising her hand suddenly. So we'll go to her, and then we'll invite each of you to a closing breakout room before putting the session to rest today. Welcome, Jamuna.
Hare Krishna. So just rewinding a little bit back onto Krishna's plan.
First, an important question: where are the parrots?
Are they asleep? It's 9 o'clock. They've gone fast asleep.
Yeah, I will adjust the whole timing of the satsang so you can have darshan of Jamuna's parrots.
Yeah, Krishna's plan. So I love what you said, and I've heard it before, and I agree with that. So I'm just, having to deconstruct my own brainwashed stuff and things that I've heard. So I'm just going to throw things out there. So in regards to I was taught to see it as Krishna's plan, that Srila Prabhupada, when he came to the West, that there's the story of him, that he was sitting on a bench speaking to somebody. I believe it was a homeless person, but I could be wrong. And they were having a conversation, and Srila Prabhupada was saying why he was there. And he said that he had 108 temples. Only time was separating. So I was taught, maybe nobody else was, to see that Srila Prabhupada was fulfilling Krishna's plan. Krishna had a plan and Srila Prabhupada was fulfilling that. And then I was also taught that this is Lord Chaitanya's movement. Lord Chaitanya's movement is already going to go on. It's destined to spread to every town and village. And you can be the part of Krishna's plan, Lord Chaitanya's plan, or not. But how do you want to be part? How do you want to participate in Lord Chaitanya's movement? It's already going to happen. It's already predestined. So what's your part to play in it? So that would suggest a plan, that things are mapped out. There we go.
And what's the question?
Anything to add to that? You want to throw anything in? Do you want to churn it around a little bit?
I will emphasize, first of all, you stay with your more than gut feeling in the beginning, that you feel that not what I say makes sense, and because I say that makes sense to you, that's it, and you don't care for anything else. I appreciate bringing apparent purva paksha or apparent opposing views to strengthen and balance and nuance our points. But again, it's a word, right? The word plan. It's a word, and different people may use the word. Even Prabhupada himself may have used the word at his time with a certain idea and intention. Of course, we know that Prabhupada, regarding the story of the 108 temples, that this came in his astrological chart. Okay? So he knew that came. And again, you can explain all that purely in terms of astrology, which doesn't mean there's predetermined and you have no options, but it means you are carrying a momentum from your previous life into this one that will take into that direction. And if you, if you act in a certain ways, probably that will happen. And of course, Prabhupada was willing to allow that to happen, to honor the momentum that he was carrying in service to Krishna. And to explain that in this way is very different for me to say there was an absolute predetermined plan and Prabhupada just chose to be part of it and that's it. Again, there was a momentum coming in him from his previous life that was shown in the chart, and he honored that momentum in service to Krishna. And he chose to do that. He took his decisions in many ways. So that's one thing in connection to that specific story. And regarding to your example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement that is destined to be spread around every town and village, and you choose whether you want to participate in it or not because that's his plan. Well, again, it's it all goes back to what I say in my reply to Hari Vyasadev's question, how you conceive the concept, how we are thinking of this idea. You can use the same line to make a point and to make the exact opposite point. So, yeah, we of course we do not deny Mahaprabhu's coming to this world, Mahaprabhu's dispensation, Mahaprabhu's experience or experiment of relishing Radha Bhav, and in the context of that fulfilling his role of establishing the Dharma with age. We can explain all that in many ways. But again, that doesn't mean that everything is absolutely predetermined and we have no choice in the matter. It doesn't mean either that we have absolute choice and we can do anything and everything. Again, these conversations have a lot to do with free will, how free is our will, and so many other related topics. But for me, it all boils down to what I said already, right? And sorry, I may have to repeat myself many times for the coming years, because again, many of us have heard certain ideas and processed those ideas in a certain way, and the processing has been reinforced in a certain way that even we do not realize how much that's ingrained. And even when we say, no, yeah, I disagree with that, but then we say some things that show that we are actually not disagreeing with that. And I won't mention names, but even today, someone says something that agrees with what I say, and then say something else that show that actually unconsciously, again, go into there is some plan, some arrangement behind. And again, I do not deny Krishna, Bhagavan, Mahaprabhu, however you like to call. He's a supreme person, a person with will, with agency, with a desire. No, like you are a mom, you have your kids, you have a desire for your kids. Like may they flourish, may they grow healthy, may they be happy, may they so many things you want in their lives. I wouldn't say you are suffocating their free will. You're such a toxic mom for willing all that. Now, if that will goes to the point that you micromanage each moment of their lives and do not allow them to do anything, to take any adventures and risks, then that becomes dangerous and toxic. You follow? So it's again, bheda bhed. It's there and it's not there. There is a wish, there is a will. I wouldn't call it a plan. I wouldn't call that you as a mom wanting the best for your kids is that you already have a predetermined plan how their lives will unfold for forever. Because that doesn't happen like that. Of course, you are not Krishna, and someone may make that argument, but Krishna can do that. But again, if you bring that creates all these big problems. If Krishna has already everything predetermined, you don't have free will, basically. You don't have any choice in the matter. And the scripture repeatedly said, Jivas are endowed with agency, kartritva. That's what makes you an individual. That's one of the 21 intrinsic qualities of us. And love is voluntary. Love has to be a voluntary act. It has to entail a choice. So everything is already planned and predetermined, and you don't have any choice in the matter. You already have an intrinsic spiritual body of a certain mood to love Krishna. You never chose it. You will never be able to choose it. How loving is that love? How voluntary that choice is? But again, that doesn't go to the extreme then neither of saying Krishna doesn't have any intention, any feeling, any will, any wish for each one of us, his children, so to say. Yeah, that's there. But at the same time, he's honoring our choices and our will. And even whatever he wants for us, it's not absolutely finished. Yeah, I want the best for you, but you don't know how that best for you will take exact shape. And again, this ties then with the idea of omniscience. There are it's so complex, this topic, because here we're talking about free will, omniscience, omnipotence, so many intertwined topics that we need to understand all of them in relation to each other. Because if not, it doesn't work. If you isolate them and just play out omnipotence and play out omniscience and play out free, and then you try to put them together, if they are not properly understood, one contradicts the other. So according to my understanding of scripture, for all of this to make sense, also Krishna is omniscient in the sense that he knows all past or present and all possible probabilities in the future, but he doesn't know exactly what will happen. Because he's giving us the chance to choose. If he will know again, I don't want to confuse you too much. Hopefully I'm not. And if I'm doing, well, welcome. Rasa Sar Chamatkar. The essence, Krishna, Rasa by Saha, Rasa Sar Chamatkar. Krishna is Rasa. The essence of Rasa is Chamatkar, astonishment. How can you possibly experience an astonishment if you know in advance what will happen at every single moment in the future? There's no astonishment. There's no wonder. If everything is pre-planned, pre-scripted, predetermined, you don't have a God in wonder, a God in experience and surprise. You follow my point? So we need to use all these criteria to play out the implications of all the things. And again, there's so much subconscious stuff in that. In saying Krishna has a plan means it can lead you to be very fatalistic, in certain things happen in certain way, to be very passive, not taking action when you should. It can lead you to being cynical eventually and hating Krishna for his plan, so-called plan. It can lead us to so many not taking enough responsibility. And again, for me, it's very clear. Krishna speaks the whole Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. At the end, he asks him, what do you think about it? Think about it, and then you do as you wish. I mean, that's one of the high points of the Gita. And Krishna is saying many things in the Bhagavad Gita. Of course, there's an emphasis on bhakti according to our tradition, but there are so many possibilities he's exploring, how many things. He's speaking about karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga, and this and that, personal, impersonal, Brahman, Bhagavan. Okay, Arjuna, this has been my sharing. Think about it. Use your own faculties and then decide. So this is what I will say. For me, this doesn't diminish at all who Krishna is, doesn't diminish at all who we are. It highlights the relational nature of reality, the participatory nature of love. We are invited to participate. We have a role to play. We have responsibility. Everything is not entirely predetermined. That will be so boring. That's not exciting. Krishna is like a great improviser also, right? It's not that reality is sheer chaos. There is some order, but in that context, there is place for newness. For if not, absolute wouldn't be the essence of the absolute wouldn't be astonishment. Those are my thoughts for today, Jamuna. And I'm sure I haven't said anything new. I've said this many times, and I'm totally fine saying that all the many more times we may need to say them. And if you are okay with it, fine. If you disagree with me, we can always have a conversation. I know some of these ideas maybe sound a little bit counterintuitive, especially if we have heard something different for decades. So we have to also understand the dynamics of what's called cognitive dissonance and all the implications of that when we receive some new information that somehow goes in a different direction to a narrative we've heard for eons. Probably the first reaction is resistance and denial and defense mechanisms and so many other things. Not consciously even, not with any bad intention, just how we react. And it's fine. We are not stigmatizing that either, just normalizing those processes of learning, unlearning, constructing, deconstructing, and always leaving the field open for conversation, even if we dare to disagree with one another. Welcome to life. It includes disagreements, as I always like to say, even in eternity. But they happen to get along well over there. Okay, a few more minutes in breakout rooms for those who have 5 minutes or something, and then we will go back to say goodbye till next week. There you're back. Let me drink for a moment at those faces, smiles. Thank you so much for the darshan. Hoping you have a blissful or purposeful at least journey, and very happy to having had the chance of sharing one more time with each one of you. We'll be putting our sharing to rest for a moment for further rumination, processing, and hopefully walking our talk during this coming week till we meet again next Saturday, same time, same channel, and wishing you also a blessed celebration tomorrow, at least here, of Advaita Saptami, the appearance day of Advaita Charya, with all that it entails, this unique form of the divine, glimpsing at the condition of the universe and having universal compassion and crying deeply and calling for Mahaprabhu to come. And we are included in that glance, so let's stay there for a moment and forever. We'll be sharing with that in our Spanish satsang tomorrow for sure. See you next Saturday. Sri Advaita Acharya ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanand, Hari Hari Bol. And if you feel all complete, we'll conclude with this beautiful verse of the Upanishad that brings this further completeness. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachiti Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyati. Everything is complete. Thanks so much. See you soon.